Statement 1. We identify the particles in the universe by how they affect each other. 2. These properties give rise to the forces that bind these particles together. Statement 3 is that using just two particles and these forces, we can explain all the matter of the universe. Our first property is called mass. Any two properties with the property of mass will be attracted towards each other via the force of gravity. The more mass there is, the bigger the force of gravity, which means that bigger things are harder to push and it helps keep our feet on the ground. Our next property of particles is called charge, of which there are two types, positive and negative, and together these give rise to the force of electromagnetism. Now, electromagnetism is different than gravity in that not only is it much stronger, but opposite charges will attract towards each other, whereas similar charges will actually repel away from each other. If we look at our first particle, called a quark, then we can see that not only does it have mass, but it can have different values for charge. It also has a property that's unique to quarks, though, called colour. Different colour combinations that allow quarks to form something called the strong nuclear force, which allows them to bind together to form larger structures. Protons, for example, have 3 quarks, but also the charges in all of these quarks cancel each other out, leaving them with a net charge of 0. Protons, on the other hand, also have 3 quarks, but their charges add up to an overall charge of +1. Together, these protons and neutrons can be bound together by the strong force to form nuclei. Here we can see how we describe nuclei using just 2 numbers and a couple of letters. The top number, called the mass number, is the total number of protons and neutrons. The bottom number is just the number of protons, though, and this is also represented by the letters, known as the element. The smallest element is called hydrogen, and this just has just the 1 proton. It can, though, have a number of different versions of this with different numbers of neutrons. These are called isotopes. Add another proton and you get a different element, this one called helium. Again, though, each element can have different isotopes depending on the number of neutrons. Some of these, though, are unstable, and so these will break apart in a process called nuclear decay. So there we have the nuclei of the elements. However, this is not the end of the story, because there is still our second type of particle, known as an electron. Electrons are much smaller than protons and neutrons, having almost 2,000 times less mass. However, they do have a full negative charge, which attracts them towards the protons in the nucleus. It's this force of electromagnetism that causes them to pack around the nucleus in what are called electron shells. However, those shells can only fit a limited number of electrons each. When we draw atoms in diagrams like this, we always draw them with the same number of electrons as there are protons. That's because this balances out the charges. However, there's one more complication in terms of the way these things are packed, and that's to do with the outer shell, called the valence shell. When atoms collide, they can disrupt the electrons in this outer shell. However, this doesn't tend to happen when you have a full shell, and so things will tend to balance out in different ways. Atoms with fewer numbers of electrons in their outer shell, called metals, will tend to lose those electrons in collisions, whereas non-metals, such as fluorine here, can pick them up. This forms what's known as an ionic bond. Non-metals, though, can also have a second way of filling that outer shell, which is by sharing the electrons in that valence shell. This is a covalent bond. Either of these, though, form what are called molecules.